You are now watching the Conversations on Sinology podcast, where China's past and present meet global curiosity. Join us as we explore Chinese language, literature, history, culture, economy, and ideas that have shaped one of the world's oldest traditions and play a powerful role in shaping today's world. Presented by the Montenegrin Sinology Development Council.
Welcome to Conversations on Sinology. I'm your host, Jelena Stjepčević, and today I have the honor to chat with a very special person for me, a dear colleague, but also a friend, whom I have known for 3 decades. Jelena Fu, a Serbian sinologist. Jelena, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Actually, the two of us met in 1996 at the Faculty of Philology at the University of Belgrade, where we were the part of the same group of students studying Chinese language and culture. And at that time, choosing the Chinese language was still considered a little bit unusual, so to speak. Would you agree, Jelena?
Very much so. Absolutely.
Since then, you have built a life and career that flows between languages, cultures, and different systems, specifically, I mean, educational systems. As this is something that we're going to speak mostly about today. So just to introduce our guest, Jelena has a master's degree in Chinese from the University of Belgrade, and she has spent 2 decades in Shanghai. She works in international consulting in business related to trade, education, training of trainers, and later became very involved in course design for language learning. Jelena coordinated English learning programs in kindergartens and high schools in Shanghai and led teams in complex intercultural environments. In 2022, she returned to Serbia, where, in a beautiful reversal, among many other Chinese-related engagements, she teaches Serbian language and culture to Chinese learners as founder and leader of Educational Center. So, dear Jelena, this is a question that I like to ask, so to say, all of the participants in the podcast with similar backgrounds, such as ours. So, were there any indications at an early age, for example, when you were in high school, that directed you to start the life path that you took? That is, to choose the Chinese language and culture and China as your focus. I'm sure that this is a question that we both get asked very often, so I would like to just hear your perspective on this.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question, and I do get that question sometimes. I think there was definitely some interest from early age, even earlier than high school. So I think the parts when we took history lessons and we learned about like India and China, that was very limited at the time. But it was always like very interesting for me to think about worlds like that. And I think accidentally or not, my mom used to buy books about like Tibet or China and things like that. So I had a chance to peruse a little bit, but it was definitely the high school that kind of paved the real path towards Chinese. And since I kind of learned languages quickly and easily, I always wanted like a linguistic challenge. So I thought, okay, everybody's speaking English now. I'm going to try Chinese. And since I also liked the culture and I was interested in history and everything else, the language was just like a bonus. And I do remember, however, a lot of pushback at the time from the environment and a lot of like doubts. I do remember one of my English language teachers, actually, she was a substitute teacher, but still, she just mentioned like, oh my God, like that's like insane. Why would you do that? On the other hand, there were other teachers, like a philosophy teacher, I think, and Latin language who were very supportive. And even throughout my university, whenever they had the chance to see me, they would ask me things about it. They were very curious. But my family always was for it. So I got a lot of support there.
Oh, beautiful. I also got a lot of support from my family. It's the same in my case. I got interested in Chinese language and culture in high school too. Actually, I fell in love with the script first.
Oh, so the writing for you, right?
The characters. But how much did your academic knowledge that you acquired of the time, your comprehensive academic knowledge, help you in your late endeavors to understand China better, and how real life in China expanded those foundations that you had? Can you compare experiential knowledge of China versus academic knowledge? Are those areas complementary, or are they completely different experiences? What would you say?
I think that's yeah. This is a very interesting question. And I think like the university does provide us with, I would say, like scratching the surface knowledge.
Right.
Because China is so vast, the history is so long, the language is complex, the philosophy is different. And there is no way you can put that into 4 years of like formal education. And not to even mention that our generation went through protests and bombard of 1999, and we did lose a lot of time there, having no lessons. But it does kind of like help you to have a little bit of sneak peek what's behind the door. The real life in China is definitely different. Um, and many ways exciting, because a lot of things that you heard from when you were studying, they're kind of coming to life. For example, you might remember in one of the lessons, maybe first, second year, I don't know, we learned about like northern China and the houses, and there was like stone bed that's basically a stove that you light the fire under. It's called kang.
Yeah.
And when I went to China for the first time and I had the chance to see Kang in a village house, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's like very, very exciting. There are also like many linguistic challenges, because the language we learn is Mandarin Chinese, Putonghua, like the standardized language. But there are so many dialects and so many ways that people express things differently that it took me quite some time to get used to just recognizing those words from people who are not speaking in a very standard way. I will tell you a funny story, might be interesting for the viewers. So I think that was the first visit to China after the second year of university. So we went to northern East China, and they have a bit of like different way of saying things, which I didn't know at the time. And there was a person who was showing me around and kept saying in Chinese, "Yan duo." And I was thinking like yen is like salt. That's what I know. Duo a lot. So a lot of salt. So it's just like, what? Do they have like a salt mine that produce salt, or factory? And then wherever we went, he went saying like yen duo. And I was like, what? Only maybe after 3 days, I realized that they pronounce ren, people, as yen.
Like yen. Yeah.
He was trying to tell me there are like too many people in China.
I learned something too today. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yes.
So interesting.
I know. Like, so that's Dongbei. They sometimes sound pronounced as y. So they were saying yongyi, not rongyi, for easy.
Yeah,
So,
like our
so
name,
that's very
yeah,
interesting.
Yelena. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
That's why we say yeah. It's a letter in our language.
Yeah, so definitely, I think a real China, both in like culture and language and environment, is not what you learn at school. So the academic knowledge, the way I see it, is absolutely helpful. Without it, you will be way more lost. With it, you have some kind of support. But I think the experience is a very, very different level. There's much, much more depth. There are friendships. There are like direct experiences and a lot of like fun situations like this one.
Absolutely beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. Thank you, Helena. I agree with all of that, of course. And what I really one of the things that I really admire you for and your work is that you provided consecutive interpretation between languages Chinese, English, and Serbian for business meetings in finance, accounting, and that is not easy, as we know, and corporate contexts. And you have also advised Chinese companies on business operations in Serbia, acting actually as a liaison between Chinese and Serbian partners. In fact, as a mediator in both linguistic and cultural terms. So, does our environment, from your personal experience, actually understand how much responsibility knowing a language like Chinese actually brings?
Oh, I don't think there's enough awareness. To be fair, I have to be direct.
Yes.
I mean,
Go
like
ahead.
you know, and I know you understand,
Yeah.
is the language that you cannot compare words to any other language. Like, for example, you will have computer in English, computer in Serbian, or computadora in Spanish, but in Chinese, you will have dienao. There's like nothing, like phonetically even related. So that's the language where you cannot rely on any other language you know to help you in certain situations. So you kind of have to learn everything from scratch. And in order to actually translate for finances or accounting or everything, you have to acquire very specific vocabulary. And not only that, then you also need to understand how those things actually work in Serbia, in your country, to be able to explain. So what I do for those meetings, and I do like one-on-one like meetings, I do not like official ones, I have to be fair. We have other colleagues who are doing that job really well, not my niche, but I would many times stop the people in those meetings and say, sorry, you have to explain that to me. Because this is not my area of expertise. I do not, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not an accountant, and I'm not like a doctor or whatever. You need to explain it to me in simple terms, because I do not necessarily know all the like higher level of specific technology. And then they appreciate it actually, because they want to be sure that the message was passed across accurately. But I do also have a lot of problems with people not giving the translators. I speak for myself and many other translators. They do not give us enough materials ahead. They do not give us what's going to happen, who will talk, who are the titles. Oh my God, they're just translating the titles of people and their functions and the institutions' names. That's just a very big part of the job, and they don't get it. They don't tell you who's going to be there, and then you have to introduce people and you don't know how to introduce them. So I don't know. It's I know we are kind of finding the way to swim in all that situation, and I do know that a lot of our colleagues have been complaining about it lately. That we are expected as translators to know everything about everything, and that's not possible. And we do rely on prep, like if we want to do our job well. So I do hope that we kind of spread a bit more awareness among companies and people that they should let us know ahead of their agenda and people, and maybe give us some specific terminology ahead.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful for this answer of yours, because it definitely will, I hope, spread awareness among companies, and also help all of our colleagues who are actually struggling with the same issue when it comes to translation of Chinese. And you shared the beautiful strategy on meetings next to the preparation, which is crucial, obviously, and I completely agree with that from my own experience. The strategy, when you actually tell people that you have to stop, that some parts of the speech need to be repeated, that it is not your area, and you need to get the message, to be sure that the message is actually transferred
Yes,
in
the
its
accurate
entirety.
message. The
It is
accurate
the
message, because
accurate message. Right, right. That's beautiful, and I know that all of our colleagues who are doing that job will appreciate it. So thank you so much. And you have also, after working in consulting, you mainly focus on education and training and knowledge development. So that's really a beautiful part of your career. Was there a special moment, Jelena, when you realized that education is your key area of interest for you? It is in fact who you are, not just work. Considering your work is in kindergartens, in secondary schools, and in the education of adults in Shanghai.
I am not sure that there was like a specific moment, more like a buildup of little moments. I do remember being like a language tutor even when I was very like young, like even in high school, I was tutoring somebody. In university as well. And I even got some education job offers that I actually refused at some points in my life. But they kept coming back. It's kind of, come on, lady, this is where you should go. So, because I like to be prepared and ready, as we know from my previous reply, I decided to give it a try with first completing CELTA teacher training, like Cambridge program that is still considered prestigious and probably one of the best programs in the world. It is a short-term program, but it's intensive and something, probably the hardest thing I've done in my life because it's all squeezed into a very short time. You don't sleep, you don't eat, you don't live for those like 1 month of the training.
Oh.
Oh yeah, but it's so worth it, absolutely worth it. And then once I stepped into the classroom for the like first official time and being observed by mentors and peer and everything, and then just started working with students and completely I would forget about everything around me. And I would just so be in the moment and with them and trying to help them understand concepts. And I felt so like, yeah, this is where I should be. So this is kind of it was the first step into the official teaching world, and that was back in 2009. And I kind of never stopped, even when there were like periods of time when I couldn't do it fully, like during COVID or something. I was always keeping one foot in somehow.
Right. I understand. That's that I understand completely. That's the part of work that I also like to favorize in my career. So I can relate to that. So can you share some of your roles and tasks from that period in China, just to get a picture of that part of your career?
Okay, well, yeah, I can highlight a couple of things. And my first big job after completing CELTA was actually at Shanghai Normal University for the English First company. And they are worldwide known language training schools, but they had like academic partnership. And it was a team of about 20 teachers, big team, teachers from different countries, and me being the only non-native speaker. But it was a hard job, many lessons, long lessons, many students. You go in with 40 students in the class, but it was very, very helpful in a sense of like building the strategies to handle the group work, pair work. And definitely some of the very meaningful friendships to this day are still from that moment. I still have friends that I keep in touch from that group of people. And I think there are like 4 of them actually.
Well,
So
that's a beautiful story, yes.
yeah, that was like maybe one thing. And I think there was another job I really liked, and unfortunately I did not get to do it for too long. It was for an American company, Bloom. They are an IT company with 800 employees. They had a training department, and I was the trainer basically in the team. Also, very lovely team, but that gave me a chance, which I really, really appreciated, to develop my own curriculum. And this is where I started to hone my curriculum developing skills and also one-on-one coaching. So the employees would come to talk to me about like work things, personal things. Maybe I can share one interesting question then that I got during one of those
Go ahead, please.
sessions. One of the employees there asked me, like, well, my team leader is like very strict and very harsh, like blaming people, criticizing. So do I really have to be like that to be a leader? It was
And
like
what did
totally
you
not.
say? What was your answer?
My answer was, well, it depends what kind of leader you want to be.
Well, that's a good answer. I have to say.
And I said that different people lead in a different way. So if it was a lady, wanted to lead with, values that are cooperation first and helping each other and maybe like motivating the team rather than punishing or, I don't know, just criticizing constantly, she could do that. And I was lucky that another student backed me up and he said, well, my team leader is exactly that kind of person. So that helped me answer my question.
Yelena, it seems to me that you provided leadership by example.
Well, maybe nowadays, at that time, maybe just like a bit of consulting, maybe nowadays.
Yeah.
And let me share my work in a kindergarten. Oh my God, that's full of lovely
Absolutely.
stories. I worked in a bilingual kindergarten for 3 years. So I was both a teacher and like an English program coordinator, which meant also working with other teachers, creating the curriculum for English language and being in the classroom at the same time. And I have to say, I just had yesterday one of those kids' parents reaching out to me. I still keep in touch with many of them. And I couldn't believe how grown up they are now. So that was a very sweet experience because we had kids from both China, kids from like interracial marriages, kids from like other countries. It was very, very nice and a very good group of kids and really supportive parents. And just, I think one fun story I would love to share. I was teaching the kids to self-regulate their emotions and behavior by deep breath, by breathing exercises, and they were like around 6 years old. So when we had like a circle time and they're all supposed to sit calmly, which of course is impossible for a long period of time. So most of them will hang in there, but then when they would get like too upset, I would ask them to stand on the side, breathe, and then when they calm down to come back. So the one sweet boy, I think Abao was his like nickname. He just went by himself to breathe. We've been practicing. So I called him, okay, you're okay now, come back. So he walked back and then suddenly changed his mind and returned to keep breathing. I said, what happened? You can come, it's okay. He said, I'm still not calm. Give me more time.
That's a beautiful story. This shows how quick their minds are because he obviously used the situation to get around.
But it shows that what I did with them shows an awareness.
Yeah.
They're aware of where they are emotionally. And I think that's amazing what that kid showed me. He could recognize his emotions and where he is in that regulation moment. So I think it was really beautiful. And whatever I was teaching them, that's the real result.
Right. That's beautiful when you have such an effect on your students and when it comes back to you in such a
Yes.
way. So it seems to me that it requires all of that you just mentioned, a great deal of authority and trust because you worked with Chinese parents, the pupils, students,
Oh, yeah.
professors, school management. That's an extremely responsible position. So how did you
Yes,
build?
it was. It was.
If I may ask, this is what interests me the most. How did you build that authority and that trust in China? What role does your role as a Zhongguotong play in that process? Not just as a person who speaks Chinese language, but real China connoisseur.
Okay, I think being like you said, the 中国通 definitely helped. Helped in a sense that everyone could communicate with me in the language that I understand, and then knowing that I understand also the culture, the festivals, the habits, and everything else. So I think that opened the door to communication. Also helped in the classroom going in and like the students couldn't like joke around because I would understand them. So they knew they had to like kind of watch what they're doing.
Nobody
But it
likes that.
yes, but it also helped them to kind of even confide in me or ask for support or something else, which was happening more when I was working in high school. Just before I returned to Serbia, 2 years I spent in this Australian, I would say, high school program. That was like a prep program for Chinese students who were going to study in Australia. And I do believe that that's where I did a lot of meaningful work with the kids, and I still feel a lot of pride when I think about that. But to go back to your question, I think it was not only that. I think Zhongguotong helps, but I think the trust that I managed to build and the connection with the students was mainly because I think I actually love teaching. I enjoy the classroom, and I have this belief whenever I go into the classroom that my students can learn and they can do better every day, no matter how bad they were the day before that. And that I am honest with parents, which that was questioned when I was, especially in kindergarten, that is a private kindergarten. So the homeroom teachers were warning me not to be very honest with parents. Like, don't saying their kid is bad or something, there's a problem, but just like pretending everything's okay. But I couldn't do that. So when the parents would come but I would find a nice way to express, and I would say like, your girl is lovely, but she's so sensitive. And the parents would go, oh my God, yes, what can we do? And then I said, so let's make a strategy. Let's make a plan together. So at school, I can do this and this. And at home, you can try this and this. And then in a couple of months, like in a month or two, let's see where we are. And then we would like work as a team on handling that kind of situation. And that would bring really good result. So I would be very like honest, but in a nice and kind way. And I think in a way that shows that I want to help, that it's not like to criticize, it's not to blame, but to help, and that I actually really care about my students, about my kids. And there was one teacher training that I did in this Australian program, Ivanhoe School. That was funny because after the training, one of the Chinese teacher approached me and she said, so tell me, what's your secret? What do you do to make your students love you so much? And I told her, it's easy. I love them. And she was like, oh, I'm like, yeah, it's the only secret.
It absolutely is the only secret. I can relate to that. It's a very beautiful answer.
Yeah, so that has been my approach. I mean, honesty, care, and really love for what you do and love for your students as well.
But honestly, now that you shared all of that, were you aware? I need to ask this. Were you aware of how big and important it was during that period? Because from my experience, we have the habit of not considering all these things that we do that seem so ordinary to us as big and important, but in fact, we perceive them as quite normal.
I would agree with you. We don't perceive them as something big and important at the time of happening. It's kind of who you are, it's kind of what you do, and you're just going for it. But maybe I am more aware of that as the time has passed. And then some of the students reach out to me from the past, or some of the parents. And then you kind of get to see the impact or the influence you had. And yeah, it helps to put things in perspective. I'm like, okay, that's really nice to know, getting that kind of encouragement. And I guess what is the word I'm looking for? Acknowledgement.
Definitely. So you also studied positive psychology and you used all your experiences in your classroom. People usually think of teaching abroad as simply being in a classroom with students, but that's not the case, obviously. There's so much more to that. And you were in China coordinating programs, training professors, actually establishing systems. So what is the work that you have to put into it that people usually do not see? What's behind the scene?
Yeah, I am curious by nature, and I do enjoy learning new things and trying out new things in the classroom. And as you mentioned, I did keep like my professional development, maybe not such formal settings as CELTA was, but more of the when this online learning opened up on Coursera platform or FutureLearn or edX, I was constantly signing up for stuff and learning and reading, and then I would go into the classroom and try it out. So I was trying a lot of different things. I did, for example, Gratitude Friday with my kids, where we had to like express gratitude for the things we did that week or that happened. I think I did this character. I was very interested always in this character and values teaching in positive psychology. So I was like teaching kids about grit or about growth mindset or about meditation even. I even used to like ask kids to meditate before their exam to like help them refocus. So I think that I was always willing, and I still am willing to take new things and try them out in the classroom. I'm brave that way. to try and even fail. Because I work very hard on establishing connection with my students in the beginning. So I think that connection and that atmosphere of like we're all in it together. So we are learning together, we're growing together, helps. And then I know I will always have the student support. So I think that's one side of the question that you asked. It takes definitely curiosity and willingness to try new things. It takes also like not taking status quo for granted, like for given, because you go into the systems, you go into the school situations where they're used to doing things certain way. And I'm always the one to challenge it if I feel it's not right. And I'm always there to push new ideas, to give suggestions. In the Australian school where I used to work, the best principal I ever like worked with, an amazing Australian guy. So when I go into the meeting and I'm bringing my notebook and say, okay, let's see, what ideas do you have now? So I was always trying to make places like better in some way, better for students, better for teachers. So I would challenge the system. And
Oh,
I was very fortunate to actually get a lot of support for that so far.
very nice and very nice. And if I may say, what I see from your story, that you have shown a great deal of integrity in every phase of your career development. So what
Thank you.
everything that I just heard is so beautiful. But I did say what interests me the most, and what probably the part of work that you like the most for the last part of the interview. And actually, I would like to talk about your current work a little bit now as founder of the DEA Edu Educational Center. Because now you work closely with people from China who want to learn the Serbian language, and with companies too, and you teach the Serbian language to them. So you just had a beautiful event recently. I've saw everything
Yes.
online, and but you will tell me definitely something more, some more things about it. What is exactly? Let's start with this. What is it exactly that your educational center does? What makes it stand out in your opinion?
Hmm. Yeah, okay. So I think my work with China and Chinese students somehow is what the Chinese would say yuan fen, like destiny, because however I move and go, the I I would maybe like to say that the Chinese students find a way to me. It's not that I'm always like actively seeking that, but it's kind of how the constellation of things just happens like that.
Which is good.
Probably, yeah, it is good. It is good. And so the company I founded, it's basically a little bit of legacy of my mom's company,
Mm.
although she was working for 30 years in like food production, something totally different. And she recently just retired and sold her business. But Dea was the name I came up with, comes from the Latin word for goddess.
Ah,
Uh,
get it now.
yes, yes. And then I couldn't use the whole name of her company because it's not food related what I'm doing. So it was like there, but educational for edu for education, for the thing that I work with. And this kind of the whole thing happened very spontaneously since I returned to Serbia back in 2018. And then COVID hit, and I didn't do a lot of things, but I was teaching randomly lessons here and there of Chinese to Serbian people, English here and there, and then a little bit of Serbian for Chinese people. And then 2 years ago, Chinese Cultural Center actually approached me to organize lessons of Serbian language in their center for aiming for Chinese people. And so it was a big challenge for me because I never taught Serbian before. So I did like one round of lessons and they were very happy. And this kind of slowly started to grow into more because more people heard, more people knew. And given the whole constellation now between Serbia and China and relationship, business development, there is definitely a lot of interest in Serbian language and culture here in Serbia. And that opened the door to working with different companies and different places. So I formed a little team of my own, beautiful young girls who are just about to graduate or graduated, majoring in Chinese language. So they speak Chinese. And we are now together creating different programs, plans, and working in different places, online as well, but also a lot like in person. And you just mentioned the event that we had, I believe, 2 days ago. This was with the support of Chinese Cultural Center and their director, Zhang, who is a teacher himself. So he has big ambitions for the center to get involved in education, not just culture. And he helped us organize one bilingual event that's like Chinese Serbian language exchange, like we called it Language Salon. And we had, for the first time, about 30 more participants, more than we expected, actually, for the first event. And we organized some games. We even played the associations from the Serbian Slagalica quiz.
I saw that. Yeah, that was wonderful.
Yes, and people were so happy and they were definitely very grateful that something like that was organized. And I think we will plan to make that now like a regular thing in the Chinese Cultural Center in the future too. And it was just so beautiful, like having all those Serbian people, Chinese people sitting at the tables and then using the phone to translate something. And one was explaining the tones in Chinese to the Serbian person. And then a Serbian person was explaining like Cyrillic script. It was so beautiful, like the whole exchange that made us all feel very, very proud of this connection that we managed to create for people.
Yelena, I'm proud of you too, because you should be very proud. I just realized that I need to thank you again for uh, taking your time to giving your time for this interview, because only after I saw the event, everything about the event that you just mentioned online, after I saw how interactive it was, the
Hmm.
proportions of it, because there were a lot of people there and the exchange was beautiful, and your team is very nice, and
Yes.
those girls are wonderful, and I saw all the everything that you did. It definitely you were busy, so so I admire you for finding the time for this interview among all those things. So thank you
No,
again.
thank you. No, no, no. I'm happy always to talk to my classmates, and I do keep in touch with some of our classmates, and I know where you also guys, how you guys have developed and things you have accomplished. And I think I'm proud of all our generation. And I'm happy now to have a little bit of input in this new generation coming now.
That's good.
That's lovely, that they get to learn from us. And this, what you're doing with your podcast is exactly that. Is
Yeah.
showing them also what we did and how we did it. And I'm doing it my own way through education.
I couldn't have said it better. So it must be very interesting to be on the other side of the language learning or language teaching now. What would you say what are the biggest challenges that the Chinese students face when studying the Serbian language?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think teaching Serbian for me is much harder than teaching English or I'm sorry, Chinese, because being a learner gives you a different perspective on the difficulties that you as a learner might have. But when this is your mother tongue, you kind of take everything for granted. It's also natural to you. You don't know what your students will find difficult. And then you sometimes don't know how to break things down so they can understand it better. So I think that was a bit of a challenge in the beginning. I was maybe teaching a lot at once with the first group, and then I realized that's not working. So we have to adapt a little bit. So now I'm trying to follow less is more strategy for the beginning and doing like more practice with simpler sample of words and grammar and constructions and everything until they understand how the language works itself. And then maybe on that foundation to build more vocabulary and more complexity. So we definitely take time when we teach. We will. I mean, the girls and I am. So I'm speaking in plural. We will not teach For example, plural and singular together. If we are doing the verb to be, we will do only singular first, and then we will do plural, and then we will combine it all with negative and questions. So it will be very, very gradual build up of the language, because grammar, Serbian grammar is challenging for most language learners, Chinese even more so, because they do not have that category in their language at all. Like in Chinese, every word has only one form, whether it's a verb or an adjective or a noun. It is what it is. Wherever you put it in the sentence, it stays the same. Whatever is the tense, it stays the same. So
Must
like
be
the
a
idea, and
challenge.
they would go with like, so the recently was volim Kinu, like I love China. So Kina is the right normal case. And then when it becomes an object in the sentence, it changes it to ooh. And they're like, why does it change? And I say, well, that's like the like accusative case. And it's like, but why? Why do you people do that?
Yes, well, exactly why. You need to have an answer to that.
Yeah,
That's a
so
good
this is one
example.
difficulty. Yeah, pronunciation is definitely another difficulty. Also, I think the influence of the Chinese language, the sounds that you move around the word, because we can have shetam, proshetam, odshetam. We can combine the words, but they simply don't. Like the verb, just the syllables are fixed. There's a fixed number of syllables, and you just vary the tones and characters, and that's it. But then when you come to Serbian, that kind of fixed mindset about sounds creates a lot of friction. So they will, the simplest example is with Serbian family names. So you have like Ilic or Nikolic. There was a Nikolici or Ilici because they don't have syllable ending in ich in their language. So they have to find the closest
Right.
version of it. So that's one of the problems. There are problems also with the r, of course. That's the first one. R is difficult, but I found that with a little bit of time and practice, they can get over that. There's a bit of problems with z and zh because they do not exist in Chinese language. L and ny slightly better. And then if they come from Hunan or those provinces that mix n and l, then it's a whole new level of problems.
I can imagine.
Yes.
I can imagine, but thank you for sharing those examples. I never tried. I never had the opportunity actually to teach my language to the Chinese native speakers. I would love to, but this I will definitely have this in mind if I do get into that experience. But what are
And
you?
I'm happy to help. And
Yeah,
I
thanks.
also created a lot of phonetic exercises just for Chinese speakers.
That
And I'm
that's
still working on creating more. So reach out to me if you decide to teach.
Thank you. Thank you. I will definitely reach out to you because I know that you're designing your own curriculum and adjusting it for Chinese speakers, which is
Yes.
good for all those people who want to do the same. And thank you for sharing that. If I may ask, what are the ages of your students, and is there a difference in the possibility of acquiring the Serbian language for those students who already know some foreign languages, especially which ones? And are some languages especially helpful in learning a Serbian language? Does age have anything to do with it?
Well, at this point, I think we have students from what is this youngest little boy now? I think he's maybe 7 attending our lessons with parents together. So it's really cute, actually. The whole family in the classroom. It's actually a lot of fun. And I think we have also up to 60 something. So we have all ages. And I would say that I think little kids, they learn the pronunciation faster and it's easier for them to pronounce different sounds of Serbian language. Although like the whole grammar is a little bit weird for them. And I think they are still developing their ability of abstract thinking and connecting things on that level, but they are pretty fast to start speaking. And since they're not afraid of making mistakes, they will just go ahead and speak. So yeah. And when it comes to this, like teenagers and young adults, I think they actually learn very fast, especially if they learned another language before. So if they speak English, definitely it gets easier. I have one student at the moment who speaks some Russian, so it's also much easier for him. And I think last year I had a Chinese girl who lived in Italy. Oh my God, she was like, for her, it was a breeze. She could go through lessons like 3 times the speed of other like speakers.
So it does.
Because there are definitely phonetic resemblances, gender nouns, things like that, that was easier for her to kind of just make the connection with. And I think for a little bit older learners, they struggle with pronunciation definitely more than the others. They get the grammar, but they forget quickly. But I believe that they all can learn Serbian, at least the functional Serbian, in a sense of saying where they're from, buying things in the market, maybe having simple discussion about their families or hobbies. I think that kind of A1, A2 level is okay for everyone to learn. And then for higher, maybe just depends on people's like preferences. I don't know, I would like to believe that age doesn't play a role in language learning, but there is definitely affects it to some extent. But I also found that our older learners are actually the most active and they work so hard. And they are the ones who always do the homework and they will always try. So that definitely compensates for maybe not getting the easiest hang of pronunciation and other things.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you for so much for all that you said. I enjoyed every part of this discussion, and thank you again for sharing your beautiful story with everybody. And the reason that I invited you for this interview is that I know how extraordinary your life path was and is, and I really think that your story deserves to be heard. So I hope that we will talk again on some other topic. You can choose any topic and really think about it, and hopefully help all of those people who are also sinologists or wish to study something related to China, to go into China studies. It will help so many people. This interview will definitely raise awareness in so many areas. It's beautiful. And I thank you once again. And I wish you a beautiful weekend. And until next time, goodbye.
Thank you so much for inviting me and see you next time.